What's up, folks? It's time we talk lore. Some credentials, so I'm not just some outsider talking about it. I collected since a few months after it was released. I pulled an Elsa in December of 2023.
Just 3 days, folks, until we get Lorcana into the Inklands. To celebrate, we're gonna open Chapter 2. These are the uncommons. I think this is the first rare. Oh, it's a gold! We got a Leggy! We got a Leggy right at the gate. Oh, another Leggy! Another Leggy! Oh, we got Scar. Oh, it's just a common. Not bad. I love this pack. 2 Leggy.
I even competed locally. I won badges, I won promotional cards, I won playmats, I won deck boxes. So I was having fun while playing and competed in Atlanta.
Lorcana. Headquarters. Hey, baby. Hey-o.
If you need to leave the hall for any reason, the fastest way is out through those doors on your left. The second fastest way to leave the hall is to lie to one of my judges during a judge investigation.
We did well. We're having fun. That's all that matters. And it is crazy packed. We got cosplayers out the wazoo.
And had a great time. Sort of. And I'll get into that later. I will at the end of the video provide Ravenberger's responses to these criticisms, or at least what their representation has said about these criticisms. That will be at the end of the video. The first reason why Lorcana is seeing a downfall is its supply. They have released 6 sets and will now have 7 by March of 2025. A bit more than a year and a half, they've released 7 different sets. In comparison to other card games like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!, where there are shows, television shows that run congruently with it or are integral to the card game itself, that breeds for more cards because of its attachment to the intellectual property. You're saying to yourself, well, Disney, that's what Disney, they're coming from cartoons, but there is no Lorcana cartoon. There is no universe where Lorcana is acknowledged by the Disney movie universe. They have their own side story going on in their own lore, no pun intended. That's not the same thing as having a show called Yu-Gi-Oh! About a card game with characters that you collect.
My next card is the third Blue Eyes White Dragon.
That justifies, I think, 7 print runs in 2 years because you're getting characters that are integral to the card game. Just printing off Candy Crush characters because you need more cards in the set is not integral or makes sense with releasing a new Pokemon series, the Johto League, with new Pokemon that you need new cards for.
It's a whole new world we live in. Pokemon Johto.
The high cost of cards leads me to another point in that if you want to tweak a deck and you need those staple cards that are $40 a piece, you have to spend $200 to $300 to try that deck. There is no digital platform. That isn't because there isn't one created. There was one created. Let me show you. Here's a clip of me playing with it. One of my favorite things to do is to just guess what the other people are doing.
I bet you have Maui. You either put a Haram in your deck or a Maui. I hope it was Haram.
Pixelborn was a fan-made digital trading card game that was free. So it's not like they were making any money off of this game, but Disney decided to put their fist down and say, no, you guys have to cease and desist, not because we have a replacement, not because we are in the works of a replacement at the time, but because we feel like you are infringing on our intellectual property. Any experimentation that was once available in the digital assets that you didn't have to invest $300 to tweak your deck, that's no longer available. I'm sorry. And this is around set 4, and it's a new game. It's only been out a year. It's finally gaining traction. People that live in the Midwest, where their turnouts at local shops aren't more than 4 people, they get to now play anything that they want with Pixelborn, but not anymore. Not because it was making money that was due to Disney, not for any financial reasons, but you are greedy and want players to buy those $40 cards, $50 cards in order to just test out your deck. No thanks. To wrap up that first point, there's 7 sets in a year and a half. The cost to complete the sets once they come out, it's so expensive. And now you don't have the digital asset that you can test your cards with before you invest $200 into that deck. All those combined for the first reason why it failed. The second reason includes verbiage and decision making by the creative team, and we'll get into that. The creators and producers of the game gave a speech in Atlanta during the first challenge to all the competitors where they announced which decks they run. They were also soft announcing the errata or the changing of a particular card. It's this Bucky card. When they said that they run a specific colors and it didn't include green, I realized that they were going to sabotage the green deck in order to better their own, and they did just that. They neutered the engine of the green deck, which was a disruption type deck, and this card specifically, which if you had the right draw, you could get your opponent to discard a bunch of cards. They changed that to make it you could only play it a turn later in the third turn, pretty much, and it didn't have ward. It's just it neutered the engine. It ruined the green deck. They announced the change in the third set. They released it the second set. That's poor planning at best. In addition to neutering the sets that were counter meta, they added cards to the Amber Steel deck that added to the mess, that added to the red-blue decks, that made it imperative that you had to buy these new sets and boxes of them if you wanted to pull the rare cards you needed to get a competitive deck. Prince Namir was $40 a card when that set first dropped. Rapunzel, who is in the first chapter, hers are still $40. So you can't tinker in a cost-effective manner, and these rules are changing left and right. New players, returning players, you're going to confuse anybody that tries to run that deck because you're changing the cards. But other TCGs do that. Those are lessons to be learned, not examples to follow. Again, mistakes of other TCGs are lessons to be learned, not examples to follow. Third micro point in this creative blunder reason number 2 is character choices for the cards. The first chapter comes out strong with characters right behind me. Ones that are recognizable to anybody. Mickey, even Elsa, more common. Moana, great characters. Hercules, Hades, Simba, iconic. And yet I find in the later sets here, we are seeing the same characters over and over as if Ravensburger only has rights to Jafar. I mean, we are now coming out with our 7th set, and Jafar is going to be a staple again. Do I understand seeing Mickey or Minnie a couple of times? Yes. But the depth of characters that Disney has to choose from that will individually pull in people just for them having those characters. I think Pocahontas. I think any Pixar movie, which bear in mind, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that Disney would bring in Pixar because they already announced that they are. It's not like that they didn't have access to these characters like Toy Story, Finding Nemo. Imagine the new players that would come to play Lorcana just because there's Pixar characters. Don't think that what we need right now are characters from Rescue Rangers or the Black Cauldron. I do think that those should come eventually, maybe make them minor characters. When you're setting aside my favorite characters, is a little bit heartbreaking.
Quick, the thicket.
Reused characters.
Faster, faster, Bambi. Don't look back. Keep running. Keep running.
Ignored classics.
Thanks for joining us on this halftime rip. We are cracking into a starter deck, so that way we can get... Ooh, good sign, Elsa, so far. Let's see. Maui. Tink. Coming up on the uncommon. Nice, good card. Oh! Coconut. Thanks for that. First rare is a rare. Ooh, good card. Mickey Mouse, Wayward Sorcerer.
There's a saying in the Magic community that I learned recently. It plays as it reads. And that is not the case with Lorcana at all. There's no better example to the audacious, just blatant disregard for ignoring what's on the card to fit whatever creative team wants. Well, there's no better example of this than Reckless. Now, let's read it together. Reckless. This character can't quest and must challenge each term if able. So if you were to read that as that the character can't quest and that they must challenge each turn if they're able to, then you would be reading it incorrectly. Character does not have to challenge if he is able to, despite what the card says. If your opponent has a character that is vulnerable to attack, you would assume because Gaston is able to attack them, he must attack them. The rules of Lorcana Creative decided no. That character can do other actions if they want. If they want to sing a song, they have the ability to sing that song, which would exert them and thus not force them to attack. So Gaston doesn't have to attack here, despite the card reading must challenge each turn if able. And they point to the rule book here, which I have pulled up, and say, no, look, Reckless, you can sing, you can exert yourself any way you want. You just can't leave the opponent's characters unchallenged at the end of the turn. Why not say that? Reckless. This character cannot quest and may not leave opponent's characters unchallenged, which is the purpose of Reckless. And I get if you want to argue semantics and say, well, the handbook rules that nobody carries with them, that's not in the starter deck, those rules say something different than what's printed on the card, and I'm going to go by those rules instead of how it's written. It makes the card game awful for kids trying to understand it. I see my 10-year-old nephew saying, what do you mean he can sing? It says he must attack. And me saying, he is able to attack right now, but I don't want him to. I want him to sing. So I'm going to have him disregard the action that it's forced to sing. I can't explain that to a 10-year-old. The creative team blundered this, and it's evident with their turnover. They're replacing people. They're bringing new people. This game is less than 2 years old. It's stupid, objectively. All of the aforementioned reasons were enough to get me out. But what about other people? When did it die for them? Let me introduce you to Disney Lorcana Challenge, Melbourne. Melbourne had an incident recorded on camera to which a player cheated.
That same play happened 1,000 times that day, exactly the same way, and there was never a problem until that moment.
The crowd.
Okay, go for sure. So
goat,
games
yep.
1, so it goes up to 8.
Yeah, if
And-
there was a way for
and then
Jesse
you move
to
the broom away.
banish the broom,
Banish broom. Oh, it says
plays the goat, banish the broom. Yep.
there's a rulings question. So I'm guessing, hey, can he do? Looks like we're back into the game.
Yes,
here,
we are.
And it looks, or stuff happened. Goat.
So
Broom. Broom did not get pushed away.
yep. So Maui's able to retrieve, develop your brain.
Cheated. And then he called over a judge who affirmed the cheat, who doubled down on the cheat. This is ultimately the straw that broke the camel's back.
The second fastest way to leave the hall is to lie to one of my judges.
Not only is the card game confusing, the judges don't understand it or don't give a crap and don't care enough to understand it. So people could just cheat, call judges over, and then have that confirmed. A failure in Melbourne actually highlights 3 failures. Failure to create a simple game that doesn't require complex understanding. It's a game meant for 8-year-olds. Having adults needing judges to come over and confirm certain rules is a red flag. Step 2, the bad faith players. This cheater has been banned from other tournaments for cheating in the past. I'm not saying that's a responsibility of Lorcana to know that, but it is kind of a responsibility of Lorcana to prevent that from happening to their tournaments and their events. The third Achilles heel that is shown here is that event organizers don't know what they're doing. The thing that you have most control over is your staff and your regulations and your judges. Having people judge that have never played before seems so audaciously stupid. It's unfathomable. It's objectively unfathomable and honestly reason for people to leave the game. With the third reason that Lorcana is failing being cheating and event organizers not knowing what's going on, I want to just say that I even in Atlanta had experience where a player picked up their hand, put it down, and then picked up their inkable cards and then said that their hand was the inkable cards that they played. And because I couldn't remember all 7 or 8 inkable cards, I couldn't be like, well, I just saw you put that down and pick those up. He then played those cards to beat me. I'm almost certain that I was cheated out of that match, but there's nothing I can do. And if I call a judge over, it's proven that they don't even know. So I stopped playing for multiple reasons, and the culmination of all of them is a reason why a lot of people stopped altogether. How does Lorcana, Ravensburger, how do they respond to these criticisms? Is it with understanding, empathy, or is it double down? Double down. Double down. Ignore. Double down. Ignore. What do you think? As far as their responses to the Bucky incident and the verbiage, they're doubling down on that. They've reprinted the new card, and they're not concerned with changing cards that they made just a set before. The creators do not care about that. And as far as cheating goes, it's been days since they've addressed it, and they said that they're working on it confidentially. However, it's cheating somebody out of thousands of dollars of a reward all live on camera is not something that I think should be investigated confidentially, because it's already proven publicly what happened. There's no investigation that needs to take place as far as what happened with the cheater. As far as your tournament issues, whether it's a third-party organizer, you are running on the Disney name and tag. That's like if Ravensburger prints a card with an inappropriate card with Mickey and Minnie, you don't just say, no, well, that's a subsidiary company. That's not actually Disney. It's the name. It's their organization. It's their tournament. Ravensburger gave it the green thumb up. No excuses in my mind will rectify the avoidable issues that they created. Lorcana did announce that they're creating a digital game now, which might be a day late, dollar short, but it is good. So in a time where Disney would rather lose money and be wrong objectively than admit that they're wrong and their ego and their pride was wrong in some of the actions that they take, in a time where Disney operates like that, I highly doubt we'll ever see the end of Lorcana. They will inevitably have drops and releases that new players will come in. Wrap things up in conclusion, these three things are the major things that really deterred Lorcana early game. Can they bounce back? Maybe. Is it worth it? Not to me, but I hope that you enjoyed this explanation. And if somebody asks you, why is there so much Lorcana on the shelves? You now have a 20-minute long explanation as to why nobody's buying Lorcana anymore. Thank you for sticking around. I hope I made it and explained it as easily like you were a 5-year-old and I was trying to explain it to somebody younger, or an 8-year-old trying to play Lorcana.
Oh, they're gonna reprint. The card game's gonna die. Disney will roll over before it lets any of its IP that it's invested like this die.